All right, today we're diving into a secret military op that went, well, catastrophically wrong. This is all based on the Swahili thriller Kapten Kalyawasi. And let me tell you, it's a wild story of impossible choices, brutal sacrifice, and that razor-thin line between duty and something much darker. So let's get into it.
Just listen to this. These are the words, the actual directive from General Lukatar to his captain. It's better the entire battalion is captured than this file falls into enemy hands. I mean, wow. Right from the jump, you know this is going to be a ruthless mission. The lives of more than 200 soldiers are basically considered less important than a single piece of paper. The stakes just could not be higher.
So who's the guy at the heart of all this? Meet 35-year-old Kapten Kalyawasi of the Tanzanian army. Now, on paper, he's a skilled commander, chosen for what looks like a totally standard UN peacekeeping tour in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But that's just the cover story. His public duty is just a mask for a mission that is way, way more dangerous.
Okay, so here's the breakdown. Publicly, Kalyawasi is leading a battalion of 200 peacekeepers. You know, a noble, very visible job. But the secret mission, that's his only real mission. He's basically a high-stakes career. His job is to physically carry a single file through one of the most volatile places on Earth. And those 200 soldiers, they're just the camouflage.
So you've got to be asking, what in the world is in this file that's worth more than an entire battalion? Well, the source calls it the TSS file for top secret documents. And what's inside is explosive. It's got proof, hard proof, that powerful politicians in the DRC are secretly bankrolling rebel groups like the ADF. This file has the power to do one of two things: either expose all the corruption and finally bring peace, or, if it gets into the wrong hands, it could light the fuse on an all-out civil war.
Now, Kalyawasi isn't completely on his own with this secret. He's got a 3-person shadow team hidden right inside the battalion, and these folks aren't your average soldiers. They are specialists. You've got Sergeant Nasa, the comms expert, Lieutenant Asha, she's the intelligence guru who can read people in situations, and then there's Corporal Musa, the muscle and the guy who knows how to make things go boom. They know they're protecting something important, but only Kalyawasi knows exactly how high the stakes really are.
All right, so the mission kicks off. The battalion flies to Uganda, and then they start the really dangerous part: the overland journey by truck convoy deep into the DRC. The second they cross that border and enter those dense, almost claustrophobic forests of North Kivu, they are smack in the middle of enemy territory. The road to Goma is about to turn into a battlefield.
And then, just like that, the lead truck slams on its brakes. A huge tree is lying right across the narrow dirt road. And this thing didn't just fall over. No way. It's been cut down on purpose. This is the oldest trick in the guerrilla warfare book. The convoy is boxed in, and Kalyawasi knows, deep in his gut, what's about to happen.
Before anyone can even shout a warning, the jungle just explodes. ADF rebels, armed with RPGs, mortars, you name it, they open fire from every direction. And this isn't some random raid. This is a perfectly planned ambush designed for one thing: total annihilation. Trucks are blowing up, chaos is everywhere, and these peacekeepers are pinned down in a fight they were never, ever meant to win.
Right in the middle of this absolute hellscape, Kalyawasi is facing a commander's worst nightmare. He's watching his soldiers, the men he's sworn to lead and protect, getting torn to shreds. Every instinct as a captain is screaming at him to fight for them. But then he remembers those orders from the general. The file is all that matters. So what do?
He makes the call, and it is a brutal, agonizing decision. He orders his small shadow team to get ready to bolt. The absolute slaughter of his own battalion, that's going to be their cover. The rebels are so focused on wiping out the convoy, they won't even notice a few soldiers just slipping away into the jungle. He's literally sacrificing the many to save the mission.
And the plan works. It's horrible, but it works. Under all that smoke and chaos, Kalyawasi, his 3 specialists, and 5 other soldiers who just happened to be close by, they managed to break away from the firefight. They just melt into the dense Virunga forest, leaving behind the burning trucks and the bodies of their comrades. Out of 200 men, only 9 get out alive. But here's the thing. Escaping that ambush, that was the easy part. Now you've got 9 soldiers lost in one of the most dangerous jungles on the planet. They're being hunted by rebels, they're running low on supplies, and the jungle itself is just as deadly as any enemy soldier. Their new mission is stripped down to one word: survive.
Kalyawasi knows they're being tracked, so he makes a really smart tactical move. He physically tears the TSS file into 3 separate parts. Then he splits his tiny team into 3 groups, and each group gets a piece of the file. Sergeant Ngasa leads a decoy team to deliberately draw the ADF away, Lieutenant Asha takes a 6th soldier and her whole job is just to evade, and Kalyawasi, he leads the main group towards the objective. It's a massive gamble, but it's all about increasing the odds that at least one part of that file makes it through.
And the price for that gamble is paid almost instantly. Sergeant Ngasa, the loyal comms expert, does his job perfectly. He successfully gets the rebels to chase him. He and his 2 men engage the enemy, buying precious time for the other 2 groups to get away. They fight like hell, but they're overwhelmed and killed. Ngasa's sacrifice is the only reason the mission is still alive.
So, after regrouping, the few survivors left push even deeper into the forest, hoping they've finally lost the ADF. But in doing that, they wander into a part of the jungle that even the rebels are smart enough to avoid. They've just escaped one predator, only to walk straight into the territory of something else. Something far, far older.
I mean, think about it. They've survived a full-blown military ambush, they're starving, they're completely lost. What could possibly be worse than that? Well, the jungle. The jungle always has one more nightmare up its sleeve. And the answer is just horrifying. Without a sound, without any warning, the soldiers are suddenly surrounded by silent figures stepping out from behind the trees. These aren't rebels. These are pygmy hunters, total masters of this deep forest, and they're armed with poison-tipped darts and spears. Before the soldiers can even think about raising their weapons, it's over. They're subdued, captured.
What happens next it's the stuff of absolute nightmares. These hunters aren't just protecting their land. The story says they're cannibals. That night, tied to trees, Kalyawasi and what's left of his team are forced to watch as 2 of their own, soldiers named Saraka and Juma, are ritually killed and then consumed. You can't even imagine the psychological trauma of that. This isn't war anymore. This is a primal horror show.
In a moment of pure chaos during the hunters' grisly feast, Kalyawasi and Corporal Musa manage to break their bonds. It's a desperate, bloody fight, but they free Asha and the others. They just run for their lives into the pitch-black night, leaving 2 more of their comrades behind. The original 9 escapees are now down to just 5.
Okay, so after days of suffering things that are just unimaginable, the 5 ragged survivors finally break through the tree line and see it. The outskirts of Goma. They made it. But this last mile, through a city crawling with enemy agents and informants, this might just be the most dangerous part of the whole journey.
So, Kalyawasi comes up with one final, desperate plan. First, they disguise themselves as a refugee family to blend in. But they quickly realize the local guy who's supposed to be helping them is actually an informant about to sell them out. So, in a last-ditch move, Kalyawasi reassembles the file, hands it all to Lieutenant Asha, and tells her to go, to find her own way to safety. Then, he and Musa deliberately start a firefight, creating one last huge diversion to draw all the enemy agents to them, just as a UN helicopter is coming in to pull Asha out. And when you look at the final tally, the price of this victory is just staggering. The numbers tell the whole story. 5 survivors, 4 confirmed dead from that small escape team alone, and over 190 soldiers from the main battalion either killed or captured in that first ambush. An entire military unit just gone. All for one file.
But against every single odd, the mission did succeed. Lieutenant Asha and that file were pulled out by the UN. The evidence got delivered, that corrupt network of politicians and rebels was exposed, and a much bigger, much more devastating war was stopped before it could start. The objective, at the end of the day, was achieved.
And that leaves us with this final, really haunting question. Kalyawasi is treated as a national hero. He saved countless lives by preventing a civil war. But to do it, he had to consciously sacrifice almost every single person under his command. So is this a hero's victory? Or is it a commander's unbearable burden that he's going to have to carry for the rest of his life?